the dark night of the soul. That's an interesting concept. It's something I've realized I've been going through, but when I was growing up in general, I never really knew about this whole term, the dark night of the soul. And since English is my native language, maybe I actually haven't looked into whether we have a Dutch version for it. But briefly put, if you consider this concept, if you don't know about it overall you could say it sounds like depression if someone is suffering from it or having a midlife crisis of some sort. And I would agree as well that I probably am suffering from that right now for actually numerous months. It's kind of interesting how this all happened, because it seems to be around July last year that, for whatever reason, I've mentioned this briefly before in a previous video, this whole, like, my whole feelings have changed around with physical life itself. And then, in September I became 33, and now going on from 33, it seems like, yeah, my perceptions have changed forever, permanently, most likely. Now, the dark night of the soul can also be described, therefore, as some have put it, that you have this acute feeling on a deep spiritual level that physical life is no longer really that interesting to you. So again, we can also just say, oh, that sounds like depression. Like, oh, he must be depressed as hell. Is he suicidal as well? Well, I want to put that out there real quickly. No, I'm not suicidal, but but at the same time, I'm also not really interested in my own physical life anymore. And you might be wondering, well, why is that? Like, isn't life supposed to be fun? Aren't you having fun? And it's like, I used to have fun. But the thing is, if we take this concept of evolution on a spiritual level, on the level of consciousness, then it only makes sense that this would occur to any human being, whenever that might be. It depends on their own state of consciousness and where they're at. But I know there must be a certain percentage of human beings going through this right now, and they might be confused. They're like, what is going on with me? I don't understand. Why don't I enjoy my life anymore? And here's the thing. The more you become aware of the spiritual nature of your own being, of what lies beyond physicality, which you can experience, but not many people do, sadly, well, the more you experience these greater realities, these greater layers of freedom, because that's what I like to call them now. Layers. That physicality is one layer, the spiritual realm is another layer, and it goes on and on. For these spiritual realms, they have certain terms like the astral world, like the astral body, the spiritual body, whatever you want to call it. It's a non-physical reality. That's another layer of existence. And the more you become familiar with them consciously through actual direct experience, well, it only makes sense that certain layers like physicality slowly lose you lose the interest in them to a certain extent. Now again, if it means that you become suicidal, and maybe your depression is just a little, maybe it's for different reasons then, because I don't feel like taking my life literally to get rid of the physical part of me. No, I will live this life until this body just naturally dies like anyone else. That seems to be the best option for me as well. But it just means that throughout the upcoming years, decades, however long it will be that I'm still here, just in general, I would have to face the fact that I don't really feel entirely enticed by physical goals anymore. So I can give you some brief examples of this. If I walk around in a non-physical reality, then I can experience much greater forms of love, compassion, joy, and I can't even begin about non-physical realities. They look way more beautiful than physicality. Like, that's also another strange thing about it. And then the more you have these experiences, because I deliberately seek them out, I deliberately contemplate the non-physical more and more on purpose, the more I then feel like this physical life of mine, at least, it's like a bleak existence. It's like it doesn't have the extreme, the beautiful divine flavors that I would experience and perceive non-physically. And I think that's where many people might be at as well. And it's kind of a tricky subject to talk about. I'll be honest about this, but what I mean is that I think there are people out there who might be going through a similar sort of phase in their lives, but because they're perhaps not really that focused on spiritual things in general, they might not recognize it as such. Maybe they have been having these non-physical experiences. Excuse me. Maybe they've been having these non-physical experiences and kind of dismissed them as, some weird hallucinations. Because if you dismiss them and you think they're hallucinations, well, then it seems that you become even more depressed because you're not really looking at the greater picture, at the broader, beauty that it actually is hinting at for you. So even though you might lose interest in the physical, there's greater realities that await you and that you can grow towards. That is what evolution is all about on a spiritual level. We reach out to what we consider the divine, and the divine reaches out to us. We reach out to the non-physical, eternal realities, and those realities reach out to us by making us more aware of them. And that is exactly what is happening to me. So my videos, in that sense, I've also noticed is, one, I'm not making as many as of late because I just feel like contemplating this stuff for myself and then see what I am compelled to actually share with you. I automatically what I'm inspired to do with this information, with these insights. I don't no longer really feel that interested in specifically talking about how you can achieve physical goals. I've already have hundreds of videos on that, so in case people wonder, how can I achieve a physical goal? Well, we've talked about that many, many times, and I think that's also a beautiful thing because it shows a sort of spiral in my own case through these videos as well, where it first started out mostly focusing on physicality, then we injected more spiritual, elements to it, because ultimately that is the part of you that allows you to achieve things physically, that spiritual nature of yours. But now I want to explore the spiritual more specifically, these realms, what they mean, what it means to actually awaken your own consciousness while you're here on this planet, because as you do so, your whole perception will become completely different than the average human being. You no longer wake up and really feel intimidated or obsessed with physical life as you may have been up until that point. Rather, you're how can I outgrow this altogether? If there are greater realms, and I've experienced it myself, and I know others out there have experienced it too, then it only becomes logical that you want to go for those realms instead of sticking around on a lower layer called physicality. In my case, that's how I describe it. I mean, we're all here physically. That's where you're listening to this message, in the physical world. But yeah, see, I hope it makes some sense to someone out there that perhaps that's what you're going through as well. Just understand that if you feel like there's something not entirely right with the world or with this life that you're living, you can find all the solutions and answers you need in that spiritual realm of your own soul that lies beyond the physical, that knows beyond the physical, that can see beyond the physical. Through it, you get many answers of life, and one of them is indeed that we're not really supposed to be attached to the physical world. You can have fun with it, of course, you should have fun with it, but it's this very subtle thing of forgetting entirely your own eternal divine nature while you get attached to physical stuff. That's literally what happened to most of humanity. Let's be honest, you can see it clearly. They've forgotten their own eternal nature, so they treat each other badly. They get into fights, wars, all these conflicts keep going on and on for centuries. And they probably will keep going on in the future as well. Because people have become so identified with their physical selves, with being a physical human being, that they forget to see the unity that lies beyond all of it. But if you see the unity, there is no need for wars anymore, interestingly enough. But you see, this is on a level that most humans apparently are not ready to see it yet. But if you begin to see it, then yes, this world becomes kind of a weird place to be in. You feel a little out of touch with it. You're not really in harmony with it anymore. And that kind of fulfills one of those quotes from scripture that said that you're in the world but not of the world any longer. Your mind, your consciousness is no longer really of this world once you start perceiving the things that lie beyond it. It has to be that way. That is how evolution and growth occurs for the individual soul. So this is something I just wanted to share here, some thoughts on the concept of the dark night of the soul, that if you're going through it, then I hope you'll just take it as an opportunity to grow more spiritually. And don't be depressed in the sense of, I need to end my life or something. I hope you won't grow in that direction, although I won't blame people for taking their own lives. I mean, my own mother did it as well. I can understand for some people physical life is so unbearable they want to get out of it as soon as possible. But the thing is, if you were to take your life, I do believe that it's just more useful for us to overall evolve our consciousness beyond the physical life. So if physical life hurts you, then break your attachments to it more and more. Just let go of it already in your consciousness. Just break free. Be free. Be a free spirit. Learn to travel non-physically freely. Then you know you don't need any money or you don't need anything to really enjoy the universe. Yeah, that's a big statement to make. But I've seen that myself and I've heard it from others. That it is true. You can travel the world even here physically, non-physically. So you don't even need money to see the world. Like, isn't that much greater then? It's absolutely wonderful. That's why I think it's more beneficial to know this from from own experience, to go there, to experience this for yourself, to seek this out, so that then you don't need to take your life violently, but you realize, oh, I can actually outgrow this life while I'm still in it. And that, is the true spiritual evolution of the soul. And that's what I think the dark night of the soul is all about. And in certain cases, depression is just about that as well. Although some people might not recognize it, but in other times it is true. Depression might simply be because you're just too pessimistic without having the divine equation going on within your consciousness, where it's like only pessimism and you feel so bad and you don't perceive the divine either. Yeah, that's also a bad place to be at, let's be honest. So ultimately it is really about you and I perceiving the divine, the unity, devotion to God. This is what they talked about in ancient scriptures all over, in many texts. I mean, I've read, well, I don't know how many books I've read about this, but at least ancient wise, there's like a couple of them, about maybe 10, maybe a little less, but many of the big ones, religious books, etc., spiritual movements from thousands of years ago, they all talk about this devotion to God, which basically means devotion to the unity of life, and that can only be perceived spiritually and felt spiritually. So this is what it's all about. Anyways, that's what I wanted to share with you today, some of my thoughts. Very soon I'll be coming back with some other insights. Then again, these videos are just meant for people to consider it for themselves, to know that they're not alone on this journey if they sense any familiarity in my words, or if they feel something resonating within themselves with this message. Well, that's what it's all about, so that people don't feel alone in this. And at the same time, I just feel it can be my contribution to the world to just share things that I've discovered for myself, spiritually speaking, another perspective to look at life from. And yours is also important. Your perspective is also unique and interesting. You shouldn't forget that. It's not about adjusting your perspective to mine or me adjusting to you specifically. It's more like learning from each other and then finding more and more ways and strength to reach the divine unity that lies throughout all of creation.